Hey folks, welcome to the Scalar live stream for open source project once again, and I'll just continue with the Twitter backend that I was building using Node.js and TypeScript, and you can go to discussions on Scalar Academy / open source projects, and there's a thread for Moo, which is like a code name for the Twitter clone that we're building, and you can read up about what's the product requirements and what are our database entities and structures and what are the APIs that we need. That's all defined there. You can watch the last two videos as well to get more idea about what we have built till now. This is the source code is available on github.com/scalaracademy/Twitter backend node. I'll drop a link to this in the description of the video as well. A bunch of stuff we have actually already built, so a lot of stuff is actually in to-do as well. So I'll just open up my recording right here. I think one last bit I had not committed, so I'll just do that. This is not this. I think okay. So what have we done now? I think we have created a controller for hashtags, etc. So so just create the skeleton controllers and just right. So there's a bunch of stuff that's still to do. Actually, we have the controllers in place. I just added a workflow file as well for the Node.js workflow, which builds the project. So every time I make push, there should be a build that happens. I think that's happening. There's a build that's happening. Okay. So what stuff that we need, and what's getting built, and so on and so forth. I think we should put so a couple of things. What license do we have here? We haven't had license here, so do those things. The README still is of NestJS, and we need to progress with building out the controllers. So let me do all that stuff. Let me get the AGPL license. That these are also important stuff that you need to do when you're working on an open source repository. Okay, you should have a license. So I've added the AGPL license here. In my README, I should add a should delete that stuff. This stuff is correct. I will write like sort of what's project roadmap, or what are the things that are left to do in this project. We should add some stuff like that as well here. So a bunch of controllers are working and some are not working as well. So hashtag controllers, if you go and see, so we have to add the logic here. We have the user controller again, a lot of to-do stuff out here. Okay. And we haven't really built out the services part yet actually. So we have the user entity, which is the user database stuff. We have not built the user repository, so let's go and build out the repositories. Okay. So how do we build repositories? So users, and we can create new file, users dot repository.ts like this, and export class we can do user repository extends repository. I think I have to create a generic type of repository. Yeah, repository user entity. Yeah. So for now there is not much here. Just select a formatter. We will add some functions here as and when we need, but for now I'm just going to create repositories which will just extend from the repository data type here. So what do repositories do actually? There's a repository pattern which helps us. So working with repositories, you create a repository like this, get repository, and then you can do find one and stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, we are getting to that. So that's the user repository. We would need something called a user service as well. So build a so how to build services, right? So let's go to NestJS docs. What are services and what do they do, right? So there's something called services should be there, right? Service is like a cat service, something like that. Right. What are so providers are fundamental concepts. Okay, providers provide data to controllers. They can be injected, and then they can be dependency injected. So these are a lot of abstract concepts if you have not done object-oriented programming a lot before, but let's go ahead and build it. I'll just build it out, and you can probably get an idea of what services can do, right? Essentially, to give a little bit of idea though, right? So if I try to show this in form of a diagram, so here's say your DB, okay? So that's your DB. Okay, this contains the information. Okay, that's your database. Let's just call it DB, right? So there are user entities here. So what you do is it contains a table, right? Something like this. So so there's gonna be a user table in the DB, right? From which we're gonna be fetching data. Now, the entities that end up existing is I think first of all there is, say for example, your API layer. Okay, so this is your API layer, right? I'm just sort of describing this as the API layer boundary. Okay, just make it a little thicker maybe, right? Right, so some request comes in via the API layer. Okay, get users kind of a thing comes in, right? So somebody says get /users. This comes to the controller essentially. Okay, so it first hits your controller. Okay, this request comes in. Now you have your user entity, which sort of represents every row that's gonna exist inside the table. Okay, so you create a repository. The reason you create a repository is sort of, you know, the, I'd say, if I just put it to the back or make it maybe, you know, a little bit transparent. Okay, so fill, if I don't fill it. Okay, so the user repository is sort of the code via which via which data is sort of fetched from just right. So the user repository is the class inside which we have got methods like save user, save a row of users, or, you know, create a new row of users, or delete a row of users, update data inside a user row, stuff like that. So that's in the user repository. Okay, we have the controller. That's why we create something like service. Okay, now what happens is that when the server starts, you inject the what we do is we inject the repository into the service. Okay, this is the user service, and then we do is we inject the service into the controller. Okay, so when get request is happening, there would be some function which we would basically call, which would be like, you know, get all users or something like that. Okay, which would trigger another function in the user repository, which would be like, you know, find all kind of a thing. Okay, and which would basically trigger something like, you know, select star from users. Okay, so hopefully you can understand this now. Just if I narrow down the sides a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so get request comes. So initially when the server boots, this stuff happens. Okay, there's a database inside which there's a user table. We define a user entity which defines exactly how the rows are going to look like. We create a user repository which contains the methods via which we interact with the user table out there. Okay, and then what happens is that we inject the user repository into the user service. The user service contains the business logic of our code. It can do validation and sanitation and all that stuff. It will make sure that, you know, the username is of correct format, or, you know, any of those things, right? And it will call methods from the user repository. Methods from the user repository look more like, you know, find all kind of stuff. Okay, the service exposes methods like, you know, get all users or find user by user ID kind of methods, and which are then exposed to the controller, and then the controller is the entity which serves the API request. Okay, so these things are basically the dependency injection. So whenever the server boots up, an object of the user repository class is injected into user service, and an object of the user service class is injected into the object of controller. Okay, so let's quickly go about in the code and, you know, see how this is sort of going to look like. Okay, yeah, awesome. So the repository, we don't need anything else right now here. How do we create a service, right? So we can generate a service, NestG service kind of stuff. So we can do, I believe, NestG service users. Okay, should generate a user.service. Yeah, it should have generated user.service.ts. We'll create a private constructor here, and here we will pass private user repo of type user repository. Okay, right. I'll import this. By the way, I'm using GitHub Copilot here right now, so my autocompletes are gonna be pretty fantastic, I believe. Okay, so we inject the user repository here. Okay, let's see if right from the controller level, we need get user by username is something that we need. So to do get user by username or get user by user ID, we will need similar methods in user service as well, right? So let's say we construct a method here, public should return sort of array of users, public array public get user by username. It should give the username of type string, should return an user entity object essentially, right? Right, and this can be async, right? And this sort of method, what it will do is return await this dot user repo dot find user by username, but it does not have find user by username. Instead it has find one. Okay, where we can pass basically the username. Okay, so this find one takes either an option. The find one options can take something like a where clause. I think we can pass a where clause, and inside the where we can say that we pass the username here. Okay, so the where clause would take find conditions of type entity, and we're gonna find users with username or something like that. Okay, so that's what my user controller would then call. So what I will do is inside my user controller, I will inject the constructor, and here I will create the constructor and put the user service inside that. Okay. Now this user service would be useful to me here, where I would do const user equal to use. I think this should be async as well, and then then we do await this dot user service dot get user by username. We do this, and if user does not exist, then we have to send a 404 kind of a thing, right? We will do that as well. Okay, let's just say throw new error user not found, something like that, and otherwise we return the user object here. Okay, so instead of returning the user object here, we can do is also create something like a HTTP response kind of an entity, right? So we'll see that. Let's just put this as any right now. Okay, and let's just return a user. Okay, we have to import the user service, I believe. The user service should be export class users service. Okay, so we should have this as user service. Import that, right? Okay, let's try that out quickly, right? What do we have here? I think we can run it and watch mode, right? Start debug, right? Should open on port 3000 or something. Okay, user service has got some error. User entity is supposed to be right. So we did not, get a bit of a problem here. Is that you know we have some injection problem. The injection problem is happening because in an app module we have directly put the controllers directly here. Instead of doing that, what I can do is I can do I'll just open another terminal tag and I can do nestg module. Okay, this creates a user module. Okay, it creates something called user module. Inside the user module now I can actually include in controllers. I can add the users controller. Okay, I can add providers, and inside providers I can basically add the user service. Okay, in the app module, what I will do is I will add the like it has done. It has added the user module here, and I will not directly inject the user controller here. Okay. Let's see. At this stage, I think we still have some issues. Can't resolve dependencies of user service. That's because user service requires. So let's see. User service requires user repository. Where will it get that from? That's also needs to be defined inside the user module. So imports, I can provide the users repository. I think we should change this to users repository. Okay, we'll have another problem. Users repository is a provider. They have to put it inside providers and we have to export it as well, I think so. Yeah, so it looks like. Anyway, this has let my server to run, which is I believe running on port 3000, I believe. Right, slash users. So the path that I added was users slash at the rate username, like this. So user slash at Arnav. Okay. Something happened here. There was an error. Let's see what happened. Cannot read property find one on undefined. Okay, fine. That's the problem. We will investigate that. So it could not do find one inside the user controller. So inside the user controller, this dot user service dot get user by username, which does this dot user repo dot find one. So find one apparently did not work. Okay. That did not work because we can't inject repos directly like this. Instead, what we have to do is we have to design injection in a certain way. Okay, So how do we design that injection, right? Let's see. So wherever we need to inject the repository, we basically need to write this code, the get repository code. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Okay. um, and we'll do a custom repository injection. So I think there should be about custom repository, how to inject that. We have to add this annotation first of all, which we haven't done. So we have to add entity repository annotation on the users repository. So you have to write entity repository of type user entity. That's an annotation that we need to write. Okay. So inside the module, we have to add for feature kind of thing and author repository. In my user module, I will have to write imports. Type or a module dot for feature, and I will have to write user repository. Sorry. Yeah. So we have to generate the user repository using dependency injection like this. A lot of steps actually, but it does one important thing. We don't have to manually create the repository in our code anywhere then. Now this is done. Let me just try to hit this again and see what we get. Did we still get an injection problem? Seems we're still getting an injection problem. Let me just read what else we need to do. I think we don't need to do this. You have to make author service injectable. Is it injectable? Well, it is injectable. And we have made an imports for author repository already. Interesting. Okay, let me quickly check again. You have to create an entity repository. So delegate instantiation responsibility to Nest. Done. And inside author service, here to private author repositories, author repository. I think that's just all that we need to do. We don't need to do anything else, it seems like. There is an example. Let's see an example. Okay, so should be some sort of repository stuff that we can find out here. Users, there's a user module where there is user module type or module for feature user, and there's a user repository. There's no user repository, it seems. inject repository. We are going to inject repository. Okay. What's that? Do we need to do that? So inside user service. I mean, this runs a custom repository. Okay, seems we do have some problems here. Just want to keep these things inside the live stream because you know that people get stuck, developers also get stuck on stuff like this, and I'd like to see how I figure it out rather than just see that people don't get stuck or something like that. But yeah, seems a little bit. Okay, what's inject repository supposed to do? Not using a custom repository, which is sort of sad. Actually, uses repository. Okay, module providers, user service provide. Okay. So user service should not be injected here, I believe. Users module is coming in here. That should solve for that problem. User controller takes user service, which is great. User service takes inject repository, user repository. I'll remove that and just have this. And then we will see that inside user module, user repository is generated. I think this should actually work. And if I sort of, so we got a user not found, which is perfectly fantastic. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. So that's fixed, I think. Super. We just need to now sort of do a bunch of other things, which is that's base entity. We have to create a base HTTP response, by the way, via which we can, sort of wrap the responses out here. So inside, inside my user controller, in this case, I want to throw a, error here, 404 kind of stuff. So let's see how we can do that. So how is, 404 kind of stuff handled? Okay, not found, built-in HTTP exceptions, right? So how can we generate a not found exception? So we can generate a not found exception like this. If we do that, then when I hit this, I get a 404 user not found, which is perfectly exactly what I want. Okay, right? Sounds great. Yeah. Otherwise, we need to wrap it up in a HTTP response. So built-in HTTP exceptions are there. So how do we handle exceptions? So throwing standard exceptions, we can just throw an exception anywhere we want, and that sort of works. Custom exceptions can be built. We can extend HTTP exceptions to create sort of custom exceptions. There are a bunch of built-in exceptions which really love. Most of them would be something here. Do we have inbuilt responses? We will check that. By the way, I think in my code, there is one little thing which I need to take care of, is that I think in the app.ts, I had turned it into Fastify application, and somebody just added some commit here to add Swagger. I think Swagger stuff, I believe, does not work properly here. So if I go to /API, oh, it's working. There was that Fastify stuff. Let me just quickly check. So oh, this is the backend source code, right? Somebody had sent a pull request which was written in Express format, but we are using Fastify here, I believe. Or did I not merge that person's pull request? I don't know. So somebody added response compression. So I'll just add a command to them that can you use Fastify please, because we are not using Express. So I'll just tag him. I'll send them a link also where to do it from, right? So there's a compression with Fastify stuff. So I'll just tell him to drop there accordingly. Okay, so they can update their pull request sort of, with the Fastify one. Okay, now I think we're doing great. So we have got the user stuff working here. Okay, I'll just make a commit at this point. That what we have here is okay. Now, what does the user service do? It gets user by username. It's just through and through. But if you have to check other things here, we can do that. We can just, in fact, copy that. But yeah. User ID would be a number, not a number. I think it would be a string. But yeah. In our case, user IDs are strings. Fantastic. I mean, GitHub Copilot can just, make me write this entire project, right? Yeah. So I'll just write some comments here. Description, find all users. Wow. Okay. What does member of do even in JS talk? I don't know. Okay, stuff like that. I don't need to do that here. It's already in the class. Returns a user entity. That's fine. Okay. Find a user with a given username. Find user ID, so you can add some descriptions here. So great. Let's do another function, which is what all other functions do we need? So user controller, we would need get user by username, get user by ID. This would be actually pretty straightforward then. Const user equal to wait, get user by user ID. Fantastic. Why does it say no? Change spelling. Cool. So same stuff here. If not user, then throw not found exception, and that return user object. Oh, good, right? It looks good. I have to change the return type to something, I believe, for this. User entity, this should be async, and this should be promise. Yeah. This is to create a new user. actually, right? And this is to update and user. So we'll do all that stuff as well. So how to create a new user? Create a new user with your details, right? Wow. I mean, GitHub Copilot is really great actually. Prompt returns, promise user entity if user is created. I'll just go right. Okay. So okay. Create takes an entity like deep partial entity, right? So something like that. Okay. So we take a user entity, and then the user entity must be of you know, should have username, name, avatar, bio, follower count, followee count, all that stuff. In fact, we just need name, avatar, bio, username, and that should be enough for us to create that. Okay. We can create a user DTO. Right, we can create data transfer objects. So inside your user controller, we can write, some classes here. Export class user create request body. This can be my DTO basically. To create a user, we need username, password. Copilot really amusing. I think I've been really loving it. We don't need that. We need password. We need name of that bio. So we'll do name. Avatar would also be a string. Bio would also be a string. So that's user create request body, right? So here inside create a new user, we'll write API. I think we can do API body, and you can pass I don't know, type, and you can pass right. Other things can be passed: schema, description, enum, required, stuff like that. Okay. Sort of. So I do it like this, just going by it, and if I just restart my server, I think it's already started, right? So if I go to API tag here now, so users, create user, right? This one, post request body, try it out. So request body is supposed to be of the type, is it gonna try to do some autocomplete? I don't know. Let me see how to do API body, right? So with OpenAPI, if I have to define types and parameters, so body is supposed to be of certain DTO type. API body. Okay. So if I do it like this, instead of this, just do body. Create user request body like this, right? Declared but not used is fine. If I refresh this, so user create request body is supposed to look like what? Let's not take those values. Let's see why not. We have to put some further annotations, I believe. So body, then create category DTO. It should have API property tags on it, right? So I'll just do that. Awesome. So it's supposed to have username, password, name, avatar, BIOS, these kind of things it needs to have in the request body. And that's the definition of it's a request body, right? So when you're creating it, we can have some of the things as optional, I think. So username, password are needed. Name is sort of optional, I believe. We can make name optional, we can make avatar optional, and we can make bio optional as well. So these can be added if we need to. So if I refresh, then you should see that these are not required, but it does not show it that way. So okay, does it become not required now? Yeah, it's not required. So yeah, I think it should catch the nullable types automatically, but somehow it does not. But yeah, check it anyway. Oh, we can do API property optional. So that's sort of, I think, better. Import this one. Should do my job still, right? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So if my body is of this type, username, password, name, avatar, bio, string, blah blah blah, right? It's just saying that. And I'm expecting in user service that when I'm creating a new user, then I get a deep partial of user entity. Right, so partial is basically something partial like that, right? So when I call this from the controller, okay, making it async again. So const user equal to wait this dot user service dot create user with the create user request. Okay, should work, I think, right at this point, and it should return a promise user entity here. Be great, right? Except that if I will just return user from here. Okay, is the user created or not? Let's see, right? We can see the user will get created or not by just trying out this endpoint. Let's try it out. Pass username Arnav, password Arnav, not pass name of bio, and just execute that. Some stuff happened, I believe. This execute. Awesome. So I think user got created. Did the user get created? Let me quickly check, right? So let's do PSQL. This is MoDB, right? So select star from users. Wasn't created. Why was it not created? We'll have to check. I think we have to use save, I believe. Let me try it out again. Okay, we got an error. We got to see why the error. null value in column name violates not null constraint, so name can't be null actually. Right. Okay. One thing that can't be null, let me just quickly check the entity. So apparently name can't be null, as it looks like. Can I just do a see? Okay. If I say bio and avatar can be null, so I'll have to write, column. And can I just do this? I don't know. Does that work or not? Apparently does not. So we have to do a default supposed to be not null, I guess. So pass a column nullable stuff here. Bio can be nullable as well. Name can be. Okay. Okay. So name, bio, and avatar can be null now. If that's the case, then I should be able to inject this now. So let's execute one more time. Fantastic. Table gets created. Let me do select star from users. Got it. Just get created. Okay. So that's the user ID. Can I fetch with the user ID and can I fetch with the username now? So let's try that out as well, right? So get user by username, pass Arnav here. We're getting that. This is the user ID, right? So the user ID is basically this. Let me try it out with the user ID as well. So get by user ID, try it out with the user ID, execute, getting it. So works. So get user by username is working. Get user by user ID is also sort of working, right? So fantastic. There's a lot of stuff, right? Quickly check if my recording is still working correctly or not. I'm almost an hour into it. Okay. Fine. I think I will end this stream here and we'll resume with the rest of the stuff in a different stream. Okay. Thank you for watching till here, right? Feel free to join our Discord. It's there in the description along with the video, right? Just under my face. I think it's probably shown that you can come to our Discord server and we can talk about this project and a lot of other projects. So we have got on the Scalar server, there is a open source channel. In the open source channel, we talk about these kind of stuff that we're making here. Okay. There are people online still. Great. So we can talk about projects that we make here. If you want to contribute, that's the repository. That's the discussion about this project. You can come and participate in the discussions here. There are people here who sort of very actively participate in the discussions, and this is the repository where you can go and find out issues, and you can create pull requests and stuff like that. Okay, so that's it. We'll catch you again in another stream. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody.